How many of us will it take to win the spiritual war? Hi, I'm Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind. And the question of the day is, how many of us will it take to win the spiritual war that we find ourselves right in the middle of? Previously I had announced that we were in a spiritual war because based on the fact that the most powerful mind programming tools in of computers and the movies are all being used against us to increase the kinds of programming that will disrupt our value systems and desensitize us to violence and tragedy. It's all around us. Suddenly there's a preponderance of stories and reports of those who flaunt the laws, both physical and spiritual, and are being portrayed as winners, while those of us who seek to maintain our value systems are being portrayed as stupid, as losers and jerks, and out of touch with reality. Spewing hatred is becoming normalized. It's the standard of communication these days. Physical violence is on the rise, especially against the elderly who cannot defend themselves. And brawling in shopping malls and other gathering places is becoming more and more common. Something is trying to tear our society apart from the inside. That looks very much like a spiritual war to me. I'm reminded of the movie Kingsman, The Secret Service, where the character Richmond Valentine, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson, is a billionaire inventor who has created a SIM card for smartphones that he can activate to generate a mind-altering signal that causes people to become murderously violent against each other. And he's using this as a tool to reduce world population by prompting people to kill each other. And as I look at what's happening in the media, it seems that our visual media are doing the same thing. Smartphones, computers, television, movies. They're being turned against us to decide to desensitize us to more easily accept violence, murder, and so many other negative behaviors. And they're seeking to turn us away from our spiritual benefits. They're making fun of spirituality. Yeah, we seem to be in the middle of an effort to create hell on earth. Hell on earth. Please, click on the thumbs up button below, and if you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe. I'd love to hear from you, so you can use the chat box on the right side of the screen or the comment section below this video. And you can continue to support this ministry if you would go to my website at bozemandevelopment.com and choose the Please Donate button or link. Or you can use my Cash App at $Andre Amron. I appreciate your support. So since we're in the middle of what appears to be a spiritual war, I'm raising the call for spiritual warriors. I'm calling for as many of us as possible to take up the task of saving our world by becoming spiritual warriors. How do we become spiritual warriors? We do that by refocusing and strengthening our faith and becoming more disciplined in our spiritual practices. As you already know, I've been proclaiming that we as spiritual warriors need to combine our spiritual powers to elevate the consciousness of the planet. We need to do that. It's a desperate time now. Of course, it's been said that the idea of changing the world is a crazy idea. I agree, it is a crazy idea. On the other hand, there is that famous quote attributed to a TV commercial from Apple Computer that says, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do." The people who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are the ones that do. Let me remind you of a story. It's a story of Gideon and his army. Now, it's a story from the Old Testament of the Bible. It appears in the book of Judges, chapters 6 and 7. Now, Gideon was a farmer living in a very oppressive world. His people were under the rule of the Midianites. Now, the Midianites, very intimidating people. The Midianites would confiscate their food supplies and destroy their crops to keep them on the verge of starvation. That way they were left weak and vulnerable and unable to defend themselves. Now, if you remember the movie The Magnificent Seven, you might recognize that story begins in the same way, with the defenseless farmers being terrorized and exploited by a large group of bandits who take their food and destroy their crops. Now, Gideon was a very smart man. In order to feed his family, he figured out a way to keep growing his crops and processing his crops out of sight of the Midianites. He had them in hidden places so that he could grow the plants and harvest them without being detected by the authorities. So he was able to keep his family fed and strong. Well, one day, while he was processing his wheat in his hidden area, he was surprised by the presence of an angel that was sitting under an oak tree nearby. And when he acknowledged the angel told him, "You're a brave man, Gideon, and the Lord is with you. Go out boldly and save your people from the power of the Midianites." Now Gideon, a farmer, said, wait a minute. I'm only a farmer. I can barely save myself. How am I going to save the people? But the angel told him, don't worry about that. God will be with you and will help you drive out the oppressors. So finally, after much convincing, he decided to take on the assignment. So Gideon's first assignment in this great task that he had agreed to accept was to change the consciousness of the people. Because the people were worshiping the idols of materialism, and it was keeping them weak and short-sighted. So Gideon went about the task of chopping down all the wooden idols. Chopped them down. And then he burned them. He burned the remains. And after he'd done that, he loudly dared the idols to punish him for what he had done. Of course, they couldn't do that since they had no power. They couldn't do anything against him. So when the people saw that, when the people saw Gideon in rebellion against the idols and that there were no repercussions for it, they began to listen to his teachings about the living God. And after they began to listen to him and he realized that he was making an impact, Gideon then sent a message out through all the lands of his people, and he called upon them to join him and prepare to eject their enemy from their lands. Thousands answered his call. Thousands. Even though they weren't ready to fight, an all-out battle with these well-trained and disciplined soldiers they had to face, they were curious. They wanted to see what Gideon had to say. They wanted to see what his plan was. So during intense prayers, Gideon asked for signs from God and guidance from God to show him how he was going to win this unwinnable war that he was preparing to fight. Now, one of the messages that he received was that his army was much, much too large. Too large, too many people. He was told that if his army at this side wins the victory, they would believe that they had done it by their own might. And that was not what God wanted. He says, they will think they did it themselves, not that I was the one who helped them. So Gideon was instructed to send home all those who were afraid to fight. As it turns out, there were quite a few of them who were frightened by the prospect of having to face death, the prospect of having to go head to head with these evil intimidating soldiers. You know, they probably, in the fight, they probably would have run at the first sign of conflict anyway. So consequently, Gideon announced, "Whoever's afraid of the enemy may go home." And they jumped at it. They jumped at it. Thousands of them left and ran home to be safe. A total of 22,000 actually left right away. So that shrunk the army down to about 10,000 people. 10,000 warriors who were determined to fight in Gideon's army. So even though it was considerably smaller than it was before, he now had an army that was definitely stronger because they were more focused, they were more disciplined, they were more ready to fight than that big one. So then, to his surprise, God told him again that his army was too large. God told him that the people are still too many. You need only a few of the bravest and best men to fight in this battle. So you will need to reduce your numbers again. And he was then told that the way to do it was during the drills, the training of the men. He was to bring the men down the mountain past the water. He said, "And when you do that, I will show you there how to find the men who you need." So the next morning, Gideon had his men marching down the mountain as if they were going to battle. And they were to rehearse how they were going to attack the enemy. Then when they became beside the water, he was to notice how they drank the water and set them apart into two different companies. So when they came to the water, most of the men put down their shields and their spears and knelt down at the edge of the water and scooped up the water with both hands together like a cup when they were drinking. On the other hand, there was a smaller group, much smaller group of men who did not stop to take large amount of water. What they did was instead they held on to their weapons, their shields and their swords with their right hands, and then with their left hands they would scoop up the water only a handful at a time in passing, and then they continued to march on. God then told Gideon, "Separate the men into two groups. Those who drank with both hands are to be placed in one group, and those who held on to their weapons and only drank water from one hand are to be in another group. The second group is the men who I am chosen to set your people free." So after separating them out as he was told, Gideon counted the men who were left, and he found that there were only 300 warriors who qualified for God's requirements. But there were about a little less than 10,000 who were on the other side, who scooped up the water with two hands and drank. So he had a group of 300 who were disciplined, focused, ready to fight, stayed alert, even while they were drinking water, stayed alert and ready to defend themselves. So he kept that band of 300 and prepared them to go into battle. Now the other 10,000 he sent back to the rear lines to wait at a rear guard position, away from the immediate attack zone, but ready to fight when the call came. So then what he did was he needed these 300 very focused, disciplined men, and he gave each one of those men three things. He gave them an oil lamp, a clay water pitcher, and a trumpet. An oil lamp, a clay water pitcher, and a trumpet. And he told them to do this: light the oil lamp and place it inside the pitcher so they cannot be seen. He then divided the men into three companies and very quietly led them down the mountain in the middle of the night. and arranged them all in order around the camp of the Midianites. The camp of the Midianites was very quiet because they were all asleep. Why were they all asleep? Because they were so confident of their power. They so underestimated Gideon's people that they didn't even bother to post guards. They just all slept because they knew they were safe. They knew nobody was going to bother them. They were untouchable. So Gideon's people have surrounded the camp of all these sleeping Midianites, and then in one synchronized moment, a great shout rang out, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon." And immediately after they gave the shout, they broke their pitchers, and the crashing sound of breaking pitchers radiated throughout the camp, and then all of a sudden there was lights surrounding them. Lights. That startled them. But there was more to it than that, because immediately after they broke their pitchers, the guards began to blow their trumpets with a mighty noise. And that just blew them out of the water. That just woke them up, and they were so startled with this noise and this light, and when they're looking around, there are all these soldiers around them with swords drawn, ready to kill them. And you know, because they had so underestimated these people, to see this surrounding, and see themselves being surrounded by these people ready to fight and kill them in the middle of the night, when they just woke up, was just too much for them. They were terrorized. They didn't think about fighting back. They thought of escaping. Let me get the hell out of here. And so they turned and they started to run. They started to get out of the way. Because it was dark, they were running over each other, and some of them were trampled to death. But they ran back to the east. That's where their land was. And they ran through the valleys. But down the valley where Gideon had anticipated they would run, he had his second group, his 10,000 men that he told to wait in the background, in the rear guard. They were waiting, and the soldiers, the Midianite soldiers, ran directly into that trap, directly into it. They were cut off and cut down by those 10,000 soldiers. And the few who did get through, who rushed toward the river to get home, there was another group waiting for them at the river. And so they too were destroyed. Eventually, by the end of the night, the Midianite army had been destroyed totally. And they never returned again to terrorize Gideon's people. Never again. Of course, Gideon was praised for his brilliant strategies and his decisive victory. But he always gave credit to the higher power of the Lord. He said, "'Twas not me who did it. It was God. It was not me. It was God." Of course, I'm not advocating a physical blood and guts war. No, that would not serve us at all. That would put us at the same level of those who are trying to destroy us. Remember, we are involved in a spiritual war. So our weapons must be the weapons of spirit. I only use the story of Gideon and his army to illustrate that when you call upon the power of spirit, then there is no force or scheme or plan or action that can defeat you. No matter what the numerical odds might be, there is nothing that can defeat you once spirit is fully involved. You know, there's a theory that among a certain school of statistics that if a dedicated group of people representing actually less than 1% of the population of that community all meditated for peace at the same time, for the same amount of time, they would change the consciousness of their community, and they would bring about a reduction in violence. Now, I say it's a theory, but there have been a number of experiments to support that theory that have shown that if the right number of people focus and meditate for peace and love and harmony at the same time within a community, the level of violence will be reduced. Remember, we are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. We are spiritual warriors. We have the power to influence others by our very presence. If we stay true to our purpose of connecting with and serving as conduits for the incredible power of infinite intelligence, we can bring peace, love, and harmony into this world. We can. If we stay true to our purpose of connecting with and serving as conduits for the incredible power of infinite intelligence, we can attract others through the law of attraction, and our magnetic attraction will cause our numbers to grow greater. More and more of us will join together for the same purpose. And if we stay true to our purpose of connecting with and serving as conduits for infinite intelligence power, our movement to save this planet will grow stronger, and there will be more than enough of us working through love, for love, to win this spiritual war. And then, because we are connected, because we are empowered, because infinite intelligence is using us as channels to bring love and peace and harmony into the world, into our communities, into our lives, because that power is there, because that power is working for us and through us, we can help transform the world. We can win this spiritual war. We can, and we will. Let's close with prayer. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence. Thank you for bringing all of us together in this life so that we may become spiritual warriors and join in the work we have come here to do. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence, for bringing us into this space of awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to life and infinite intelligence. Thank you for showing us who we really are. We open our minds and hearts to the truth of our being. We are the children of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And because we are part of the greater whole, we're beginning to understand our value to the continuity of life on this planet. As we become channels of your power, infinite intelligence, we can feel your presence within ourselves and within our lives more and more. We know that as we feel your presence within our lives every day, we will rise, because we are no longer cut off from you by being immersed in the darkness of fear, anger, and the pain of unforgiveness. So we're now restoring our connection through the grace of forgiveness, knowing that as we learn to forgive ourselves for the pain we have caused to ourselves, and as we learn to forgive those who have inflicted pain upon us, our connections will grow stronger, and our lives will grow happier and healthier and more prosperous. And for this, we are truly grateful. As above, so below. As within, so without. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending some time with me. Please click on the thumbs up button below, and if you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe. You know, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, your suggestions, your stories. So please use the comment section below the video. And remember, you can help support this ministry by going to my website at bozemandevelopment.com and choosing the Please Donate tab, or you can use the Cash App at $Andre Amron. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, remember, I am Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind.